and welcome to another episode of Inspired Women Gathering. This is a show that talks about all things from life, relationships, spirituality, business, and everything in between. Women inspire me through their stories, their resilience, resourcefulness, tenacity, and the powerful movement that we make in the world. I love connecting and having deep conversations, sharing with you the women I am so blessed to know and who inspire me. This deep and knowing time in our world. My name is Dixie Bennett. I'm your host, and I'm a soulful women and wealth coach and healer, helping you live an abundant life. I created this platform to highlight amazing women who I come across and connect with, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. I am so excited to introduce today my amazing guest and horsewoman, Angie Payne, and her topic today is standing in reverence. Angie spent most of her career in the corporate world, primarily focusing on human resources, and has studied human behavior extensively. In 1999, Angie, a young horse named Romeo, came into her life. In partnership with Romeo, she embarked on her own journey of self-development. Angie became inspired to share her passion and the healing powers of the horse with others. Angie believes that with the help of the horses, we can learn to live a more balanced life, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically. Negative experiences and traumatic events often fill us with problematic stories about who we are, and Angie encourages her clients to recognize who they are in the present moment. Clients are empowered to create for themselves the positive life that they want to live. Experiences with horses lend themselves to reflecting on what's happened before to create new possibilities for the future by removing resistance, therefore allowing us to move more freely in the world. Welcome, Angie. I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, Dixie.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit more about how you came into healing with horses. So I know you mentioned that you have an HR background and that you were in corporate for a while. So at what point did you recognize that maybe you could bring healing horses and the human behavior together?
Well, I've had horses my entire life, starting from the age of around about 12 years old. And, reflecting back on my life now, I recognize that they were helping me all along. They had helped me through some pretty dark times in my life. Working for corporate Calgary with a lot of top executives, I recognized that I actually probably spent most of my time being their therapist.
Right.
So maybe we can scrap that. I don't know. But I've always found that people are very comfortable talking to me, and seems like people feel safe with me. And it wasn't really until around about, I'm going to say around 2008, 2009, the horse that has been with me for almost 21 years now, Romeo, he kind of cracked me wide open. And it was during a riding lesson, because I had searched out somebody that could help me to become a better rider. And it so wasn't about that. I recognized later. But I really remember one day in a lesson, and I don't remember what my coach asked me, and I don't really remember what Romeo was doing at that time. But between the two of them, I ended up sitting on my horse crying a river. And, it just sort of all fell out of me. Everything that I had held back and stayed silent about my entire life just kind of fell out of my body. Right. And so then it was kind of like, what the heck? And how did that all happen? And wow, now what do I do? How do I put all of this back together again? And so, I started to look at this human horse movement, I guess, in that what were horses actually doing? So I searched out a bunch of different modalities that people that were partnering with horses, and I volunteered at various different places. And then one day on my computer at work, I got something from a company called Touched by a Horse. And something inside of me just knew that I needed to find out more about this. What I learned was that they were offering a 2-year certification program to bring Gestalt methodology, coaching, and horses together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was at the end of 2010. I sent away for the information, and I was enrolled by January 2011.
Beautiful.
I quit corporate Calgary, much to my husband's.
You quit your job and then you went?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
I remember my husband sitting going, what?
Yeah.
But I really recognized that, corporate Calgary in an office was not my purpose, I wasn't passionate about it. So I embarked on that 2-year program. And honestly, I have to say that it changed my life. Not only did it's kind of like a master's program. So not only did I learn a ton, I also had the opportunity to not only have horses as my therapist, but also sit with a 35-year trained psychotherapist. Right. And actually got to do my own personal work as well. So, when somebody sits in my arena, I know what they're going through because I've done it myself. You can't graduate unless you've done your personal work. So that's kind of how I ended up. I graduated at the end of 2012 and have been doing it since then.
Wow. I love that. I know it's, I left my corporate career in 2011 also, and started my complete opposite whole trajectory of a different path. But I went to school, like I was focusing on, I did my education and training while I was still in corporate, and I did it more in secret. Like I wasn't telling anyone about it, and spending holidays and weekends and taking courses whenever and wherever I could to get certified. So what was going on in your head at the time when you had to make that decision? Well, you decided to make the decision that you were just going to go all in. That's pretty courageous.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned about myself while going through the program was it's kind of my makeup. I don't spend a lot of time making decisions from my head. I completely come from my heart and my feel on things. And so, corporate Calgary was kind of weird for me to be in that, because that's not, up here is not generally where I make decisions from. So I just knew, Dixie, that I just knew I had to do it.
Right.
And I didn't question it. And I'm so, so blessed to have a husband that was like, well, okay, if that's what you feel you need to do. And very supportive. And he's always been very supportive about my business and what I do. So amazing. Very blessed that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And where are you located now? Where are you from?
I live in Crossfield, Alberta.
Okay. And is that have you always lived in Crossfield, or did you relocate?
No. I lived in Calgary. I was born in England and moved to Calgary when I was 6. And lived in Pennsylvania for about 6 years, but mostly Calgary. Okay. And then 12 years ago, we moved out to Crossfield.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
To be closer to my horses.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, because I know where the ranches that you work at, which is Rafter 7. Sorry, what's the name
Rafter
of it?
U7 Ranch and Wellness Center. Yeah.
Yeah, which is up by Carstairs, which happens to be my hometown. So tell me a little bit more about, so how did you always work in arenas, or how did you get into that?
Yeah, so when I graduated at the end of 2012, then I had to find somewhere to do my work. I was boarding my horses at a stable, a friend of mine near Balzac at the time. Okay. And she was just lovely and said, oh, you can do your work here. Fantastic. And as it, bless her heart, and I am so grateful, but as it turns out, boarders weren't really excited about what I was doing in the arena, because it can sometimes get loud, and people swear, and they leave with mascara all over their face and things like that. So if people don't understand, it seems a little, odd. And why would you be doing that? So she would have allowed me to stay there, but it just didn't feel right to put her in that position to have to explain to people what I was doing. So I moved my horses and spent a little time at a friend of mine's ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2015 now, my partner, Amy Manya of Herd Wellness Through Horses, we didn't know each other at the time, but I had coached her. And she was just finishing up the Touched by a Horse program. And July of 2015, her husband and she bought the ranch where I am now. And I got a call one day to say, we just bought this ranch and I know it's not perfect, but we would love to have somebody that is trained the same way to share the costs and do their work here. Would you be interested? And so I drove out, and I remember coming over the hill, and you can see the ranch on your left side. And I thought to myself, that cannot be it. That cannot be the place. But as it turned out, it was. So Amy showed me around and gave me an opportunity to think about it and all of those things. And I remember going to see my horses that day, and there were a couple of horses cut up by barbed wire. And it was almost like that nudge that said to me, this move is probably a good thing. And so I remember calling Amy and saying, I would just love to bring my horses and do my work out of your arena. And would it be okay if I brought them tomorrow? And so I literally loaded my horses up the next day, moved them to Brett and Amy's place, and then left on 2 weeks holidays.
So you really do lead with your heart. You're like, yeah, let's just go.
I really do. It gets me into trouble sometimes. And I'm awfully blessed because Amy and I do a lot of work together, and she's not that way. So we balance each other out quite a bit, which is, it's a beautiful partnership.
Yeah. No, you guys definitely do.
In a little bit. Pardon?
I said, you guys definitely do have a beautiful partnership. Experiencing, I've been out to the ranch. If you haven't been, you need to go, especially, make it a priority once we get a chance to go out and experience something new from being cooped up. And I love going back to the experience that you had being cracked open by Romeo, just out of the blue, and just everything kind of poured out of you. And I would describe that was, I've been around horses, I've been around animals, I grew up on a farm, and I really enjoy animals and nature. But I'd never had quite the experience that I did when I was at the ranch and with Fancy. And exactly what you described with Romeo is what I would describe with Fancy, where she just came up beside me, and it was like there was just pouring out of me. Like there was just I couldn't hold it in, I couldn't hold it back. All I could do was just focus in and just allow it just to move out of me. And there wasn't anything really specific for me at the time. It was just definitely whatever I was holding back definitely moved, was being called out of me. And I just watched it like kind of pour, just energetically, but also through the tears. I want to talk a little bit about, the healing property of horses. And you and I have had some really cool, we have known each other, we've kind of known of each other for a long time. And I would say definitely in the last year, probably, I remember we got to meet physically at a trade show. And we had a great conversation, and we've had other conversations since. And one of the things I shared with you, because I work with different clients from rodeo, barrel racing, and I actually had an opportunity to go down and watch some of my barrel racing clients perform. And I was so enthralled. Like it was thrilling to watch them, because they were just, some of these people transformed on their horses, where they literally looked like young people on their horse, and then when they got off, they could just barely walk.
Right.
And to be clear, quite a few of my clients have been in that 50 plus category, so they're senior pro rodeo. But they're still, it amazed me, both men and women, watching them on the horse and then transform before my eyes into these young, vibrant beings that were just, out of the gate, going super fast, coming back around, and then they get off the horse, and I was just like, what just happened?
Just
Um, and that's one of my gifts. So one of my gifts is that I see energy. I see the transformation of energy. I can see, and you described it to me in a really beautiful way. But I'd love to hear. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, about what does happen. What is the transformation specifically around horses, and why are they so unique to heal with?
Well, I think first of all, their uniqueness is their very being as a prey animal. Um, all they care about is, are they safe?
Mm.
Am I going to be safe here?
Mm-hmm.
And so they rely on all of their senses, and they don't question it. Right? They don't question when something, a plastic bag waves in the wind, they go, oh, I'm going to die. They don't question it. They don't go, well, maybe not. Oh, maybe I should do a pros and cons list. They just react to it, right? So when they enter in relationship with people, they already know what's going on inside of us. And humans are very good at going, how are you, Dixie? Oh, I'm good. How are you, Angie? I'm good. And that's not true oftentimes, right? So when a client's in with me and they're in with the horse, and I ask a question and they haven't found that deep truth yet, the horse won't connect because it's not safe. So the horse knows what's going on inside the person, and the person isn't putting the truth out into their energy field.
Okay.
Therefore, it's like a wolf coming through a herd of horses going, not hungry, not hungry. And then they eat one of them. Right? So us as predators go, I'm feeling this and this and this, but I'm good. They go, whoa, that is not safe, and I cannot connect with you in that way. And so they won't. But they immediately will when I ask the right question of my client, and they drop into a place where maybe they've never been before. Maybe they've never spoken that piece of truth, or maybe they've never emoted that true emotion around whatever it is we're working on, right? As soon as that happens, that horse is right there. And so a friend of mine calls them little truth detectors.
Yes.
Because they'll actually call bullshit on somebody and they get away with it. If I called bullshit on somebody, probably my client would walk out, right? They get away with it for some reason. What I think they provide people with is three things: safety, connection, and acceptance. And so it allows people to completely let go of their guard, completely bring those places down that are protecting them, right? And so then that true work can really happen, and it's beautiful. And the other thing is that they vibrate at such a high frequency. So if you were to attain enlightenment for 2 seconds in your entire life, you still would not vibrate as high as horses vibrate.
Wow.
So when people leave and go, I don't know why, but I feel better. Well, it's because they raised your vibration just by being in their presence.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's a lot of value just to that. Yeah.
Well, I didn't grow up around horses, unfortunately, but I've always admired horses. I love their size. I love the muscles that are, watching them engage, when they're active, when they're working. They're such majestic, They're just majestic beings. I can watch them for hours. I mean, I can watch all animals really, but every animal serves different purposes, right? And tell me a
Yeah.
little bit the difference between a dog, because a lot of people have lap dogs or dogs at home, healing dogs, and a horse. What's the different frequencies between a dog and a horse?
Well, dogs also vibrate pretty high, but they're predators, just
Mm,
like us,
right.
right?
Okay.
And also, dogs are just like, oh my God, you're back. You know, you can leave for 2 seconds and come back into the house, and your dogs are like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you.
Yes, right,
Horses don't do that.
right.
You know, you have to. I always say that I re-enlist every day with my horse
Mm,
because they absolutely need to know what's what.
mm,
Right. So if I'm in a place of like, if I'm doing horsemanship stuff with my
mm,
horses, I re-enlist. Romeo goes, are you still leading today or am I? What's going on? Right.
right,
So he asks those questions every day because it, in his mind, it is life or death.
right.
Right. And so engaging in a relationship with them, there's so much we can learn about relationship
Absolutely.
with while being with horses, because um, you know, there's lots of different ways that people are taught to be with horses. If you're truly in relationship with them, um, there's a way that you have to show up,
Mhm.
and it's about meeting their needs and understanding what those needs are, and then being able to get out of your own way, right?
Mhm.
So just that in and of itself, like working with horses in a horsemanship way, can teach a whole lot about relationships with people.
Mhm.
And that's what my journey's also been about, is not only the Gestalt work, but the horsemanship work that I've done. It just
Mhm.
blends so beautifully in what horses have to teach us about all of it. You
Mhm.
know, that's
Absolutely.
really beautiful.
Yeah, it is very beautiful. So give me an example. So when you're re-enlisting yourself with your horse every day, what would be the process that you take yourself through?
So, you know, horses are all different, just like us. They all have their different personalities. So I'll just speak to like Romeo.
Mhm.
For him, he's a very confident horse, although he can go to those places of I am going to die.
Mhm.
Um, but for the most part, he's a pretty confident guy. He's the leader of his herd.
Mhm.
And so he talks to me a lot about spatial conversation.
Mm.
The horses speak spatially. They don't have words. They don't do any of that. So the only way they can communicate is spatially.
Mhm.
So it can get really muddy for people,
Mm.
right? Because most of the time we do not engage our space until we're all emotional about stuff.
Right.
And then we're like, ah, you know, we lose it. Or and I shouldn't speak for everybody, but that's the way it's like
Mhm.
nothing, nothing, nothing. I'm good. I'm good. And then now I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has taught me, he's taught me to just be in the space
Right.
in a way that's real and authentic. Just say what you mean.
Mhm.
Don't pussyfoot around. So if I try to engage my space with him and it's not true and I'm emotional about it,
Mhm.
the relationship is not there. And
Mhm.
he will be like, well, I guess I'm taking care of things today. And how do they take care of things? Well, if something scares them, they run.
Mhm. Right.
So I can't have that healthy spatial conversation about boundaries, then he's not going to feel safe.
Right.
And if something goes wrong, he's not going to look to me,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So I think that's the same in any relationship. If we don't have healthy boundaries
Mhm.
and don't engage them in a healthy way, then it's sort of that place where, you know, you write in your imaginary diary about stuff that somebody does to piss you off. but you don't say anything ever to them.
Right.
You just keep writing it in the imaginary book. But then one day they do the littlest, tiniest thing, and everything comes out of the book. Remember 15 years ago when you said that? Wow, what kind of relationship is that?
Exactly.
So that's one thing that horse, he's taught me many things, but that's been a really big lesson for me, is to just be in my space. And one of the other things is that we all have a right to our space, and we all have a right to take up space, right? And we can all be with each other in that way. And I think that particularly for women, it's a big lesson.
Huge. I think it's for men and women. I think it's for everybody.
Yep. Yep.
Just permission. Well, it's permission to have an opinion, permission to take up space, and just to show up.
Right.
Yeah.
So being in a conversation like that with a horse, it's just like, here it is, work through it. And you don't have to agree, but let's find a happy medium. Like, let's find that balance.
Right.
So, and then they'll keep trying as long as there's space for them and that they can actually hear you. And horses can't hear you if you're not in your space.
Well, I've always been intrigued by equine therapy, especially being a therapist in craniosacral therapy, Bowen therapy. There's both equine services in that, and animal Reiki as well, which is really huge. And I've often had a lot of people always want me to come work with their animals, and I prefer. Yeah. I love working with animals, but I work with them whenever I can. But I prefer working. My specialty is working with humans. And so with equine therapy, why would somebody seek that out, or from a different modality? Like, at what point would they seek that out, or how would they get, because people hear it and they're just like, oh, that sounds interesting, but I don't really get it. So why would somebody pick equine therapy over other services?
I would say, Dixie, that the people that come into my arena, they tend to end up there when nothing else is working. And so what I know, well, let me back up for a second here. What I hear from people that have done, traditional talk therapy and different modalities, what happens is they know it here. Yeah. They know what is going on. They can tell you what's going on, but they can't feel it. So clients have said to me, what horses do is bring my knowledge into my being. And that's when shift actually happens. So you cannot deny what a horse is saying, and you won't be able to bullshit them. Right. You won't. Yeah. It's impossible. You can try, but it won't happen. So when you're sitting in an office with a therapist, they're taking you, what you're saying, they're taking as being true. Right. Well, a horse will be like, no, let's not do that. What happens is that when the shift happens, people feel it in their body, and that's when they can integrate it into their life. Right. I've heard people say, one session has changed my life. Like, that's crazy. But I get it. I truly get it, because, when a horse touches you, or when they're following you, or sometimes, I have people walk around the round pen and they might be saying, I'll give them a stem sentence, and they're finishing it. Right. Well, horses will just block them. Like, whoa, you need to stop right there. Yeah. I've seen somebody say something and the horse from behind pushes them. Wow. So what does that mean to them? Well, it can mean a bunch of different things to each individual person, but some might say, oh, they're pushing me to dig deeper, or, oh, they're telling me that that's a bunch of BS, to, things like that, or, whoa, that's not true. So when that happens, a shift actually happens in the body, and trauma lies in our body. It's not up here. That's not where it is. This is where story happens, and we call them trolls on the shoulder that tell us things that just aren't true.
Right.
But the truth and the shift will happen in our bodies. And horses, you know, Amy laughs and says they must just see a bunch of talking heads sometimes with no body attached. Just a bunch of
I see that. I see that with people where they're literally, you know, it's
no, like,
yeah,
what's happening? Yeah. And so they really push people, but in a really beautiful way that people just accept, to dig deep. And that is where healing really happens. You know, you can be in a puddle of tears in the middle of the round pen on your knees. There's no judgment. All there is a big, soft, beautiful muzzle saying, I've got you. I've got you. You're okay. So that's when I know people, people come when it's like, I don't really know what else to do. So I thought I'd try this crazy thing called equine therapy.
I know. I tend to get that too. You know, people have tried everything and they're just like, I've tried everything. I haven't heard of this one yet. I'll try it.
Right.
But it is very much about
there's so much value to all of it. You know, every modality out there is of value. And if it works for a person, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right? EMDR, if that's working, keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore, and then try something else. But I have people so connected to my horses that my horses get Christmas presents. You know,
I love that.
Romeo gets a regular Christmas card every year with a Safeway gift card, and then instructions for me to only buy organic apples and carrots.
Oh, I love that. Well, they're being honored for the work that they do. And I love that people are treating them like the individual that they are. I think that's really special.
Yeah, it's really special.
It's amazing. So did you feel like before you went for the training, like, did you feel that this was a deeper calling to be of service in a different way? Or did you discover that as you went through the training?
I think that I would say that when I signed up for the training, something inside of me knew I was doing the right thing. But then as I went through the training and healed my own being, right, I recognized the gifts that I have to share that I had been kind of hiding away or didn't even know they were there, probably. Right. Because of my own personal work and my own strategies that I had in place. And constantly being pushed by Romeo to be like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. When I graduated, I truly realized why this horse was in my life and is in my life. I truly saw that for what it actually is. And if I'm not stepping up, he lets me know. He really does. I had a group of people come that were pretty important. It was the board of directors of a foundation that I am pretty connected to. And we were doing, like a demo for them. And I was not in my body and I was not feeling worthy at all. And I was trying to do a simple safety demo with my horse. Amy and I were. So Amy was holding him and I was doing the safety demo, which is really, you just go to nose to tail. Here's some things you need to know. And so we made the mistake of doing the safety demo with Romeo. And neither one of us were feeling particularly worthy that day. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, so horses have teeth and they shouldn't, in this work, they should not bite. Well, they shouldn't ever bite.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Romeo's trying to bite both Amy and I
Wow.
in a big way. And we're both like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
See, he's just showing you, just trying to make it through, right?
Right.
And he was just like, rawr, like a shark.
Mm.
I got to the hind end and started talking about, their legs are very athletic, but I've never seen them kick, but it's something to be mindful about. And he started swishing his tail at me.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, ha, ha, this,
Mhm.
Romeo. Well, he took his back leg and threatened to kick me, made
Okay.
contact with my knee, and
Right.
then pushed me.
Right.
So he could have broken my knee if
Right.
he wanted to,
Yeah.
but that wasn't his intention,
Right.
right? And then afterwards, when we sat in the circle and it came my turn to check in, I really just got it. And
Mm.
I said to the group, Romeo, thank you. Bad timing. We've got a group here, but I had to be authentic and truthful and say, I came in here not feeling terribly worthy. And my horse just told me, man, if you're not going to show up, neither am I.
Right.
And then he was fine. He was
Yeah.
like, okay, God, she got it.
Right.
Thankfully.
Yeah. And how did the group respond when you shared that?
Well, anytime you step into your authentic self, it gives permission to everybody else,
Mhm.
right? So I do I'm human, so I don't always get it right, but I sure try to the best of my ability to step into the world as who I am.
Mhm.
And that's really all I have to offer anyway, right?
Mhm.
All I can offer is who I am. There's nothing else, sorry.
And so how did that support you going forward? So now that you had that experience, how do you prepare yourself to step into the ring now?
Um,
Or check in even?
yeah, well, there are days where it's just, I'm not, I'm not doing okay,
Yeah.
right? And the best thing as a practitioner I can do is acknowledge that to the group that I have.
Mhm.
And then to the best of my ability, let them know I'm going to shelve it until later. My
Right.
horse is not going to let me put it on the shelf and forget about it.
Right.
But as a practitioner, I've learned to be able to acknowledge what's going on and
Mhm.
shelve it and then take care of it, not leave it on the shelf.
Mhm.
So I continue to do my personal work. And the
Mhm.
more I do my personal work, the more I can show up for
Right.
the people that I serve
So important.
and for my horses. It's
Mhm.
so important.
Mhm.
And, I do think that mental health the stigma around mental health is starting to shift.
Mhm.
I don't think it's gone yet, but it is shifting. So more and more people are talking about it. And I think that's wonderful.
Mhm.
There's still that place of, oh, I'm so glad you're taking care of yourself. Yes, you need to. I know an equine therapist. Oh, that's so wonderful that you're doing that for yourself.
Mhm.
People don't want to do it for themselves
Yeah.
for some reason, or
Definitely.
they don't want to acknowledge that they need to.
Yeah, I too am such a student of doing my own work, and I'm not 100% and I'm not perfect. I have good days and bad days, but I know when I need to go inside and I know when I need to go and do my work.
Yeah,
And I think as any therapist, whether regardless of who you are, it's so, 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 so important that we keep
absolutely.
doing our work. And my clients teach me so much, even, as I go through, working with different illnesses, different people at different stages of life, they teach me so much about myself equally.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
I think that if I'm asking somebody to sit in my arena and become vulnerable, and I have a big wall up around myself,
Yeah. It's hard to do
it's
that
not
work.
it's not going to feel safe,
Mhm.
really. At
Mhm.
least I wouldn't think so. I think it would feel very unsafe.
Yeah.
So like you say, I'm human. I still have stuff. It's a journey. It's not, healing is not a destination. It's a
Mm-hmm.
journey
Mm-hmm.
of learning more about ourselves and maybe putting some of those pieces back together in a way that make a bit more sense. But it's never ending, because something can happen tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day you have to go do some work around it, because maybe you didn't get an opportunity to say what you needed to say, or, it really wounded you deeply.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do
if
you
we're
have,
having
go ahead.
if
Sorry.
we're having this thing called life, and I often think, a lot of people talk about finished horses.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, what does that even mean?
Yeah, what is that?
Because like they're living, breathing beings. And
Right.
so they're never finished. There's always things they're going to be able to learn.
Right.
It's the same with us. If I'm finished, well, that's crappy.
I have yet to meet somebody who's finished. I think even as we pass over, we're still starting over again.
We're still learning and evolving, and yeah. So that's where I am at in my life. I'm 62 years old, and I didn't really start this journey until I was 50.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Romeo came into my life in 1999. So, it's been like this slow evolution of a person still emerging.
I love
still
that.
emerging, figuring it out.
I find that very common. I know for myself, I've had 4 careers in my young life, and even still, like I've been in this business 10 years now, and I'm still shifting and growing and changing direction, offering different things, offering different programs. And I think it's never, one of the things that I admire and love about a lot of the women in my life is like yourself, starting over at 50, 60. It's never too late to learn something. And I do hear a lot of people say, well, I put that off. I'm not chasing my dreams. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think, for myself, my awakening was that, like, you need to go out. I needed to hear that message, and it woke me up to say, oh, I need to do something different. And I was always questioning, what is my purpose? I was just kind of going along with the career, climbing, doing what you're supposed to do, checking off the boxes, to the point where, the next raise was okay. It was just like, oh my God, I did it. I got what I wanted. And, now what? Where's the next bar? What's the next thing? And always pushing and pushing and pushing yourself. So I love how you've kind of landed in a career where it's not about pushing. It's really about listening and getting more conscious of going inward and being present to your boundaries and being present to, letting it flow. I know that's one of the things that we talked about last time. And I think I've learned that too in my life through, I was in a career of pushing. Now my whole career has just really been about really listening in and letting guidance, my internal guidance, move in the direction that it wants to move. And it's very purposeful, I find. Do you find that for yourself as well, where everything, when it's in flow, it's very, very guided, very purposeful?
Absolutely. Yep. I used to really butt up against that that sort of saying of, follow the energy or follow the flow or whatever. The young man that teaches me to become a better rider says that to me a lot. He's become a mentor of mine, and I'm so grateful. And I would get so upset when he would say, just follow the energy, Angie. And I didn't like that. It would make me really frustrated because I wanted something to emerge right now. Well, it doesn't work that way. I definitely have a purpose. I definitely know now what I'm meant to do in this world. And then I kind of let the doors open where they're going to open. And I've become much braver to walk through those doors. I mean, 3 years ago, I would not have agreed to have done this with somebody. But as it presents, I just go, okay, I know what I know. I am who I am. And I'm just going to take a leap of faith and see what's on the other side. So in doing that, I have met some incredible people. I have done things I never would have done, not in a million years. And I trust that what I have to offer will touch whoever it's going to touch. It's not going to touch everybody, and that's okay. That wouldn't have been okay 3 years ago, but it's totally okay today that I offer what I offer, and I am who I am. And if that resonates for people, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But I spent a lot of time like you trying to do the shoulds. This is what you should be doing. This is where you should be going. I don't want to do that anymore. I just cannot do that anymore. So part of it is that, I'm surrounded by a fair amount of younger people. And I feel like partly that's my purpose, is to be there to help them not wait till they're 52 or 53 or 62, but to do it now, walk through those doors. And you know what? You know what you know, and then tomorrow you're going to learn something else, and then you know that too. But today, this is what you have to offer. So go out in the world and offer it. Go out in the world and show the world who you are and the light that shines within you. Because many, many people don't do that. And that light just swirls around inside, and no one ever gets a chance to see it or be with it or experience it.
I think that's such an important message that, there's no time like right now.
Right. Haven't we learned that in the last little while?
Yes, we have. I think and that's the question, one of the most important questions that one of my mentors asked is, what do you want to be known for? What did you create going through this pandemic, this world pandemic experience? Lots of people are sitting at home just, waiting things out. And what's the opportunity on the other side? I saw a post, I think even this morning, talking about, I think Airbnb was born out of the recession in 2008. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that, but something like that. And it is, as we look back in history, it's like what was created out of the opportunities. To me, everything is an opportunity, and it's just, what do you want to see it as? It could be the opportunity to be a little bit more quiet, right, which we do need, but it also is an opportunity to reflect on, what are some of those dreams that you've put on the back burner or kind of forgotten about, or even the possibility of maybe even just seeing the threads that are ready to be seen to weave something different, or to weave something better, or a new direction, a new career that you hadn't even thought of before. But I think one of the things for you too, and is, you've worked with horses your whole life. So that's something that's not new, but you found a way to work with horses and people and healing, and to bringing your HR gifts. I know it, in my experiences with you, you brought some of the personality pieces from HR world into the practice with the horses. And I just love that. And I think, I spend a lot of time sitting with people and helping them design signature programs that do bring and honor all of yourself. So there's often threads there that we don't really pay too much attention to. But it's just like, what would your life be like if you could create something that was of service in a different way, honoring all the gifts that you have? It's not starting from scratch. It's not a blank slate. It's just learning some different skills that maybe help you to bring something more comprehensive to the forefront.
5 years ago, when I moved on to the ranch with Brett and Amy, and I do feel like I kind of live there because I'm there a lot. I often joke that like there's going to be a big wall up around the ranch one day, like, oh my God, here she comes again, lock the doors. But we have formed like a really sweet little family environment there. And I always knew that that ranch had like a big vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the horses, all of them,
Mm-hmm.
have a big vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been really exciting because Brett and Amy and myself have had time now to start to allow this vision to come to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been working on that, and we're pretty excited about some of the things that we are working on, that we want to bring to the ranch, in bringing all of the gifts that are at the ranch. So the ranch, the land, the animals, the horses, Amy, Brett, myself, everything has its own special little gift, and we're working on bringing that all together for people to experience like a whole, the whole thing. So for me as a city person, I've had horses my whole life, but I've never lived on a ranch. I don't know anything about cows, and they frankly scare the Jesus out of me. but they're really sweet too, and there's lots to know. So that's the other thing I've been doing is becoming a farmer in training, which is cool. To learn about cows, and I haven't been able to do that the last little while because I can't get on the quad with Brett or anything like that, but just being able to ask those questions. So that's something we've been working on too. We call it the Farmer in Training series. We've been doing YouTube videos and things like that. And so, it's like, this is something I want to learn about. And so I want to share that. And I guess for me, what I'm learning about myself is that I like to share things. I like to talk about stuff. And again, going live on Facebook would never have been in my vision at all. Right. But I go live on Facebook and just talk, just like, here's what's happening out here today. I've been introducing the animals and things like that. So, it's been interesting to just do some different things, push myself a little bit. The technology piece has been interesting. And allowing myself to get out there and just share whatever comes to my mind or my heart.
Yeah. Well, I love how there's so many parallels in our life, and yet I started out farming, but I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm out of here.
I am absolutely fascinated by the whole ordeal. Just everything about it fascinates me. And, I just didn't know what a hard job it is.
Oh, it's so hard. I deeply appreciate it. I've told my mom many times, and my parent, I'm so grateful that I learned, that I grew up on a farm. Because as much as there was hard work, there was also great freedom, with the land, and that's, and that plays out in my life even now, where the land was such an important piece of me connecting into nature, spending all that time and quality time. And I find it a great way to connect with other people too. Like I found, I think back to fixing fence, it was very meditative. It was one of my, I hated the work of going and doing it, right? Being a kid and all that kind of stuff. But there was actually, I loved it. There was nothing else out there, and you just kind of found your groove, and you just sort of did it, and you got it done. There wasn't any loud music. There was, nothing to really distract you. It was just really being present to the task at hand. And I think that's, to me, that's what farming really taught me, was to be present to the task at hand, but also seeing the reward of working hard and getting the project done. And then you could, you had that satisfaction of, look what I just completed, whether it's cleaning out a
Right.
chicken coop or cleaning out a barn or whatever it is, just, it was a sense of accomplishment, but man, it was hard work.
Yeah. We've
Mhm.
had we've had some really funny moments because,
Mhm.
I'm 62 years old. So,
That's
when
amazing,
Brett yells at me, Clyde, get up on the fence. Well, I
right? You're like, "What?"
don't climb the fence like I'm 20.
Right.
So, but it's been just so much fun and so joyful.
Yeah.
And I have a greater appreciation. I mean, I never went to the grocery store thinking, oh my gosh, farmers work 24/7. But
Mhm.
like they work all the time to
Yeah.
put this food in our stores, right? So
Mhm.
you buy a piece of meat and don't even think about it. But
Mhm.
now I'm just so grateful
Mhm.
for the work that they do and the dedication that they have.
Mhm.
And like Brett and Amy love their cows. They
Mhm.
love their cows,
Yeah.
right? And they take really good care of their cows. It's not like chuck them out and forget about them. They,
No,
you know,
they're part of the extended family, for sure. I always call my dad, like, I've always seen my dad as the shepherd, and
Mhm.
I always remember, like, the cows would part, like, I'm not kidding you, because they loved him so much. Well, they still love him. Mom and dad still farm. But dad would walk in front of me through the cattle, and they would part like the Red Sea, and then I'd come up behind and they'd close right up, and I'm like trying to fight and push through. And that
Yeah,
was always the way, because dad was like, they loved him. They had this love because he's the one that showed up consistently every single day. And then who's this coming through with you? We don't really like her that much. Just close up.
I have to be honest, I would only go out in the middle of a pasture of cows in one of those shark cages, that they put on when
Oh,
you go in
funny.
them, and like they really do frighten me, but I just think they're so beautiful and
Yeah.
interesting, but I just don't understand them, right? Whereas Brett,
Yeah.
yeah, same thing. It
Well, they're
just,
very different than horses. They definitely have very different personality than horses. Yeah, I watched them a lot, but there's definitely, just observing them, and just, the mamas, and, they'd charge if they wanted to charge and if they didn't feel safe, right? So there's lots of partnership, I think, between cattle and horses, and the relationship between man, horse, and cattle. It's ancient traditions that, they haven't changed any. We just do it a little bit differently, right? Maybe there's more quad usage than a horse instead, it just depends.
yeah.
Um, but what would you say, so this whole life experience, how would you say it's changed you as a person?
This particular thing
Yeah,
that's going
sorry,
on
this
now.
whole, like, moving into ranchship, moving into, equine therapy, moving to a smaller community, how has all that shifted your life or perspective?
Oh boy. For me personally, uh, I realized that I think given my age as well, it's like don't get caught up in the little stuff. But then when I say that, it's like, well, my little stuff might seem like big stuff to somebody else.
Right.
So, um, I've often thought about like what would my legacy be as far as a grandmother goes,
Mhm.
and that's been an important piece for me. And really, um, how I would like my grandchildren to move in the world, I have to become that.
Mhm.
I have to become that. How I would like to see, the world in general move and the people within it move. I have to become that. So that's for me been my shift and my evolution
Mhm.
is becoming what I would like to show others
Mhm.
and what I would like the people close to me to maybe model, but more so, this is what my grandma taught me by watching her.
Right.
Right? So what do I want my grandchildren to know about me? Things like that have it's just become really important to me, and to move in the world more in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean to say I don't have anxiety. I do have bad days, all of that. But trying to come back to the present moment as quickly as I possibly can, and knowing that I have a place to go to when I need to get support with that, right? So I see Amy on a professional basis if I have to with the horses, so that I can continue to walk in this world the best way I can and be the best version of myself on that day, right? The best version of myself tomorrow might be I can't get out of my pajamas. That's the best version of me. That's it. And that's okay. So that's what I would like others to see from me. So, you know, and parents, right? You want your kids to be this way, you have to become that. Right. That's what you have to model them. So that's been my my journey. That's been really important to me since I started to have grandchildren. It has become really important. What will they say about me? What will they tell my great grandchildren about me?
Right.
And what I want them to tell them, I have to be.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for our time together today. Do you have any last words or anything else you'd like to share?
No, I just really hope that everybody is doing okay during this this time. And the truth is that this time is difficult, and it is a traumatic event. Yeah. So I hope everybody's doing okay, and like you're just going to do the best you can, and that's okay. So that's what I would like people to know.
Yeah, I think it's just one step at a time, and take every minute of every day and do what feels, I just say do what feels good. If it's a pajama day, awesome. If it's an active day, awesome. You know, it's just feel the feels and just take one step at a time. That's all we can do.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Angie. I adore you, and I just so enjoy our time, and I think that you're an amazing human being who's doing amazing work in the world, and I definitely will be taking part in more of your services and offerings as we go forward, once we're allowed to move a little more freely in the world.
Yes. Yeah, I think the horses are missing the people, for sure.
You know, everybody's missing everything, you know, it's but yeah, definitely on my list to do more and come out. And
we will look forward to having you back, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Angie. So, and sharing your wisdom today, you know, as I mentioned, you know, going back to your title, Standing in Reverence, I think that really sums it all up. You know, it's just to really be aware of the boundaries and how you're moving in the world, and really follow the energy, let it flow.
Let it flow.
Yeah. So you can connect with Angie. I'm going to put a link to her in the show notes below. And, you know, to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you guys found some value. And I would love for you to invite you to continue the conversation, post in the comments below any of your takeaways or shares. And of course, you know, share it out with the world so that we can continue to bring light, love, and hope to the world. So until next time, abundant love. Thank you for coming.